What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What's good, people? What is up? What is up? Well, hello, people. Hello, hello, and hello. We are here tonight, the big night. I am here on assignment in Philadelphia myself. I said I wanted to be closer to the action. I mean, really, that I'm just here for work, but I'm just here for work. But I am here in the hotel. I'm literally, y'all, like 3 blocks down from where the debate is actually going on. So there's a whole big protest, Palestinian protest going on behind my hotel. It's huge. It's like that. I mean, they're going like spanning like 4 or 5 blocks for the protest. Um, to protest the Israel Hamas war back there. They are serious back there. But we are here. Hey, Cams.
Hi,
How are you, sir?
I'm well, and yourself?
Still looking fine, I see.
Oh,
Hey, Sean.
well, no.
Hey, what's going on?
What's good? We had to bring you back so you could come over here and talk about the debate with us. Y'all know what
Yeah,
I
I'm ready.
noticed?
I'm ready.
Y'all know what I noticed? Remember when we was doing the DNC and we was one of the only people doing the DNC and we was over here doing our thug nizzle over here. And now the people, now all of a sudden, everybody want to do a debate watch. Some of these people aren't mentally equipped to really. I mean, they don't have the intellectual fortitude um, to do a debate watch party. But we gonna let them try. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad y'all came over here to be with us. Let me say hi to the people in the chat real quick. and say, hey, Brown Mama. Uh, TJ is here. What's going on? Jason is here. Shay, Crazy Homebody Girl, Morgan, Jeannie, Quake, Universal Goddess, Lock Queen, Ronald. Ronald, did we add you to the members only chat? Ronald, send me a DM on Instagram so we can add you to the members only chat. Spicy Original is here. Thank you, TJ. You know, green is my favorite color. So, Tamara Nichelle is here. Janae is here. Janae, I don't think we added you to the members on the chat either. Maybe we did. I don't know. Anyway, we are here, y'all. We got lot to listen to tonight. Yeah, I did pull up some of the rules for the debates. I mean, it's pretty much your standard. It's supposed to go for 90 minutes and have 2 commercial breaks. We know that the moderators are David Muir and our beautiful Black Queen, Lindsay Davis. I'm so glad she's one of the moderators, and yeah, that's good. I'm glad to see that. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 2 minutes to respond to the other candidate. They will have an additional minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. After the moderator introduces the candidates, the debate will begin with the questions and no opening statements. The candidates will have an opportunity at the end for a 2-minute closing statement, though. Both will be given a pen, pad, and a bottle of water for the debate, but are not allowed to have any pre-written notes or props. No topics or specific questions are being shared in advance, and their campaign staff will not be allowed to interact with them at any point while the debate is ongoing, including during commercial breaks. The candidates will stand at podiums opposite each other and enter from opposite sides. Trump won the virtual coin toss and chose to deliver his closing statement last, allowing Kamala Harris to choose her preferred podium on the right side of the television screen. Um, uh, that's all the rules that I have so far. Yeah, what are y'all looking forward to, gentlemen?
Who's going first? Oh,
Are
you
you
want to go first?
Uh,
I'm
I'm
looking
sure you have more
forward.
hair
You know what? I prefer an audience and the mics on, like just on the whole time. But I'm just looking forward to the craziness that about to happen because 45 is gonna say something really crazy and he's gonna really go off the rails. But I'm just I'm just excited for this debate because I want the vice president to shut it down. I really,
Yeah,
really do. Yeah, I really, really do. And just say, I'm not trying to hear that. But that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cams.
to echo Sean, I would have preferred an audience
Audience.
or a town hall style debate where they're actually fielding questions from like a diverse group of people so that we can see the contrast between them on issues that impact everyday Americans. But I think we'll see in this debate exactly why they said that it's very hard to brief VP Harris because she's prepared.
I mean, let's be clear. The woman is a prosecutor, a career
Mhm.
prosecutor. You really think that she's not a prepared person?
They were like it's like she knows she's asking deep probing questions. She's above reproach in this, and I think we'll see exactly what the never Trump Republicans uh, like. I think we'll see that implosion happen because he can't stay on point, and I think that she'll deliver something on message the entire night.
I hope he doesn't. This light is like too bright behind me. I think that's better. Yeah, that's better. God, that light was so bright behind me.
But you prefer
Um,
noted.
hey everybody, coming in the chat. I can't say everybody's names. I'll just put some pictures up so y'all can know we're acknowledging you. But listen, what I hope that he tries to do. Let me tell you what I hope he tries to do. I hope that he tries to do her like he did Hillary, and because I just want her to have a whole moment where she can go in on him. Like, really, I really hope he tries his shenanigans and antics, uh, because I just really think that we're gonna have an epic moment. Regardless if he does or doesn't, I think there will be an epic moment. Um, at some point, somebody he's going to say something, she's going to say, somebody's going to say something that's going to make the blogs, that's going to make the news cycle, and so forth. Hey, everybody, as y'all come in. So, what do you not? What are you? What are you concerned about her answering? I'll go. Questions that you're concerned about for her. I'll go first. I'm concerned about questions that go into heavy detail about Israel Hamas. That's still a sore spot to me. So I'm really concerned. Hey, Simera, I'm really concerned if there's some real deep questions about that, because I feel like international politics has not been um, a heavy topic, and there's a lot going on internationally. It's not just Israel, Hamas. You got the West Bank. You got Iran out there doing what it's doing. You got Ukraine over there losing Ukraine and Russia over there. You still have whatever's going on in North Korea, our relationship with China. There's a lot, and so I'm kind of concerned if they start to I shouldn't be concerned, but that's where I think she may get caught up, is if they have questions concerning a lot of international politics. Cams, what are you concerned with?
Honestly, the border.
Mm.
The border. I think that that's something that we really haven't been talking about. Although this should have been fixed, but the Republicans like literally punted it, and that border bill had everything they wanted. But I think that that is really going to be an issue. Also, she Biden's missteps, because she's part of this administration, they're going to try to place it on her. So anything where Biden has been weak on, Palestine, Hamas, Israel, I think that those are going to be some things where she's going to have to toe the line of not bashing previous decisions of the current administration, but saying how she's going to uh, handle that situation going forward. And I also really worry, similar to Obama, when Obama was first in these debates, very long-winded, very technical. Break it down, make it succinct, so people can receive the message. Those are the things that I'm concerned with.
Sean?
I too am concerned with the foreign policy, the Israel, Gaza, Palestine, the border. I wish she would address the whole border czar moniker that she's been given by the right, saying that she didn't do anything when she was there on the ground. I just hope that she addressed all of the. We all evolve in politics. Politicians evolve over time. When she ran the first time for president, she had some stances that were kind of like she was against Medicare for all and some other things. So now she has evolved and she's moved closer to the center, more of a centrist. So I think she needs to address that as well, because they're talking about her flip-flopping on certain issues. So I just hope she addresses those three things. Those are the things that I think I'm worried about. I'm worried about that, and the fact that that Trump is gonna try to do what he did to Hillary, but this is a black woman. She's not going to play that. She's not going to play that. If he comes up behind her, he's not going to come behind her. I wonder if they have to stay behind the podium or were they able to walk around like he did with Hillary? Was that in the
I
rules for
didn't
the
see that
debate?
in the rules. I didn't see that in the rules, but I would imagine that it is, but I did in the rules that I got those rules from thehill.com, which is a pretty good source, a pretty good resource. They tend to be, pretty even keeled and try to, make sure that they're not trying to sway one way or another. And that was the rules I got from them. But I can imagine that they wouldn't have him. And I can imagine his team probably told him, yeah, let's try not to do that. But we know he doesn't really listen to them. I think with the border, I think she's going to talk about the fact that that bill that Senator Langford authored. She's going to say, "Hey, we had one of the most stringent bills come before Congress with, bipartisan support, and you
Mhm.
instructed your acolytes, and sycophants over there on the right not to
Not
pass
to
it just
pass
so
it.
that you could take credit for doing it.
Don't give Joe Biden the win. Those were his
Yeah.
words.
Right. And then I would also pivot to, sir, sir, you're also the person who promised to build a border wall and you have 4 years to do it and it still didn't happen. You also said that, Mexico was going to do a whole lot of stuff and they never did that either. So for you to be telling me that I was a border czar for 4 years, you were the president for 4 years and did nothing. As a matter of fact, the border might have been worse after you left off while you were in office. So yeah, I would I think there are ways to go at him, but I wonder how she'll approach it.
You know what else I'm worried about? I'm worried about the moderators not pushing back on the foolishness that comes out of his mouth to
Fact checking.
to fact check him.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure they're going to be better than Dana Bash and the other guy at CNN, but I hope they push back on a lot of his foolishness. I just hope they do that. You wouldn't be doing your job as a moderator if you don't push back. You're just giving them a pass. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question for both of you. As we're like sort of gearing up and watching this, who do you think, um, you know, both camps need to sort of win over, uh, to ensure that they can actually achieve a victory in November?
Hmm.
I would say for Trump, he's got to get white women. He's losing them in the droves.
Yeah.
He's losing them in the droves, and if he can't get them, it's all over for him. So if he does anything that could be misconstrued as misogynistic, anything that he did to Hillary, I think it's not going to look well when they look at the analytics and poll people that watched it. It's not going to look well.
Um, I'll go first. I think
Go ahead.
I agree with you that he does need white women, but if he can't, if you notice that he's been trying to pivot and go more center because he knows he needs independence, and so he has to be able to reach white women, and he can't seem just way MAGA. He's going to have to try to detach himself from some really, really right wing talking points because he knows he has to win over independents and he has to win over white women. For Kamala has to she has to do a couple things. She has a harder job because she has to do total opposites. She has to reach independence as well, which means she has to look centrist. But if she goes too centrist, she's not going to win over some progressives and far left Democrats that are still maybe on the fence because there are some third party candidates that could, in certain states, that could get some far left of center votes. And so that's why the Israel Hamas situation is an issue for her. But in the same vein, you got to think about, what about the centrists and the things that matter to them most, and that those are things like the economy and things like gun safety and gun policies. I would lean heavily on that in the aftermath of Georgia, the situation in Georgia last week as well. So those are for both of them, who I think they need to reach. But I think Kamala's job is much harder.
Just to piggyback on what you both have said, white women for Trump and the more progressive for Kamala Harris. She has to walk a fine line because she's only been in the race, what, a month or so? And she's
Mhm.
been able to galvanize, and she's done a lot in these month or so that, she's at President Obama's levels when it comes to energizing. She's mobilized the party. So she's got to move closer, like closer to the center, so that she doesn't alienate the Republicans that are going to vote for her and the progressives the progressives, she's going to alienate some of them as well. But I just think that she's doing a good job. But I'm just fearful of her making some type of gaffe or something like that because sometimes she doesn't. She got to look presidential. She has been looking presidential thus far. She's been looking presidential, but I just know that she needs to make sure that she keeps on that right track. That's what
I agree. I agree. Um, Interesting. Um, I I'm concerned a little. I'd love for her to have gone last. I don't like Trump going last,
yeah.
but that's the coin toss. That's that, there's nothing we can really do about that. But I prefer her to go last. Um, I don't think, and this is just me being nitpicky. I'm being real nitpicky here. I don't think she needs to say again that she's a prosecutor, more so than she needs to show, because we
Mm,
know that that's a talking point that she said over and over and over. But in how you answer the questions, how you react, and how you are able to maneuver, I think that you can show that you're a prosecutor much, and not have to say that you're a prosecutor. So you can get away with I agree a little bit with Ronald that she does need to win over white men. However,
mm,
I think that um, she's she's going to lean on Walls for that a lot. She's going to
mhm.
lean heavily on Walls for that. I'm interested to see how that debate goes. Now that one, I'm really interested to see, and that one's next month, I believe.
Well, I'm ready for that one. I'm ready for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yeah, I'm ready for that one.
I think it's going to show that JD Vance is like truly weird.
As if he hasn't already done
Like
that.
people are going to see that, in 4K that he's strange. That's what I will say.
What is something that each one of them has not talked about that you think they need to talk about tonight?
They ain't talked about shit really. Honestly, I would say this has been a race that is very light on anything of substance. Like policy has not really been talked about on either side. It's just like silently, both camps were like, "Here it is. Read it if you want." But we're not talking about that. So I think it's just this. The elephant in the room is like, well, okay, we're gonna vote for you, but what are we gonna get? What are you gonna do? What are your goals? Like, what
Hmm.
does your vision of America look like? That's what they need to talk about. What does your vision of America look like?
Well, I think I agree that it's been very light on um, on policy. One thing Kamala hasn't done, and we see this often. We saw this with Obama. We see this all the time. Um, she hasn't leaned into a lot of issues concerning Black people, and that's because in a lot of instances, a lot of times, and I'm just going to be call a spade, they do tend to, take that. Oh, I know we got Black people, so that's not something that I need to lean in. That's a campaign strategy for the Democrats, where they know, hey, the Black voters are going to come. They're going to do what they are supposed to do. I'd love for her to speak to the base, not just to the people that she's trying to reach, but speak to the base and let them know as well that you're here for them as well as those people who she's trying to reach. I do know she did put up on her website her policies, so I will say I hope she speaks to that and says, hey, go to kamalaharris.com and you can see, because you're only going to have 2 minutes to respond to anything. So she can say, go to kamalaharris.com and go there. Anything, Sean?
What was the question again?
What do you think that that either one of them need to talk about that they haven't?
Trump is never going to really be direct about what his policy, because he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have it. That policy is Project 2025. His policy is Project 2025, which is where he's running away from. Now, the vice president, she, I did see that she was on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show today. So she's going to those, she's going to our people. She's going to Black media and all that, speaking to that audience. So I know she's done that, but I know she has to walk a fine line. She can't say these policies are specific for Black people, for us, but she has to
Here they go. They're up.
for everyone. So, oh, you're on. Okay.
Oh, let me turn it up.
Presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump
everybody
now up
coming
against
in the
a
chat.
new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate.
Bring it on. We ready.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
I'm so happy for Lindsay
Good
Davis.
evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the
y'all get to it.
That's
We
what you'll
already
be
went
seeing.
over
2
this,
minutes for
David.
rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups,
We already went
clarifications,
over
or
this.
responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
See, have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate.
Thank you.
I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all, in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. There was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But
Your whole
it makes no
cabinet
difference.
voted
I
for
have
it.
nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic, 17, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things,
Really?
but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President
We
Harris.
watched you fight them on
So-
everything about the pandemic.
Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people.
Thank you.
I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. I gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's
They
a great
don't.
plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences.
That
like
look
run,
she just
spot,
gave.
run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of
That's
dollars,
not
and so were
true.
other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest
That's
inflation
not
perhaps
true.
in the history of our country, because
That's
I've
not
never seen a
true.
worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country,
Really?
and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job.
So
but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
What?
And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
That is not
and
true,
her
sir.
vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it.
J.D. Vance.
But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, what is your response to President Trump?
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President
That was
Harris.
strong.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote.
50-50 in the
She
House.
can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness,
Just throw your
J.D.
vice president
And
under the
I
bus.
don't mind if he
No.
has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't. Look,
I think he's speaking for me.
we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it. Just like
You
she
can
couldn't
answer
get
the question.
student loans, they couldn't
Shit.
get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to
We're
Congress.
talking about
Wonderful. Let's go to
abortion.
Congress and
Sir,
do it.
answer the
The
hypothetical
fact
question.
is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Yep.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a
You
leader.
know what it is.
In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
Wait, what?
you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
What are you talking about?
Would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the
What are
governor,
you
former
talking
governor
about?
of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the
Where?
baby.
President
When?
Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn
When
now
is
to
this-
immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country.
It's not important.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
What?
And
What?
the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
What?
And then
What?
showing them in a different light.
Busing.
Really?
You can't talk about that. People don't leave my
Her
rallies.
face
We have
right
the biggest
now.
rallies, the most incredible rallies
It's
in the
the
history
smile
of
for me.
politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our
Can you answer
country
his
by allowing
question?
these millions and millions of
We
people
need
to
to
come
answer
into our
your
country,
question.
and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield.
Gonna
A
lie
lot of towns
ourselves
don't want to
through it.
talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating
Really?
the cats. They're eating the pets of the
Really?
people that live
That's a
there.
lie.
And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
The city
As
of
far as
Springfield just came out and said
rallies are
that's a lie.
concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told
Fact
us
check his
there have been
ass.
no credible reports of specific claims
Thank
of
you.
pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've seen
this.
people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on
this is
television
a
say
clar-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said
your
that,
dog
and
was
maybe that's a
taken, how
good
do you
thing
know
to
what it
say
was
for a
used
city
for?
manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did
Can't
bad
fire
things or a
They
bad job.
fired us.
I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich.
Who is this man?
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal.
That's not true.
And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump,
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
We gotta
This is the
continue.
one that
He's supposed to be
weaponized, not me.
muted.
There we go.
Weaponized. I probably
They
took
need to
a
check
bullet
his
to
ass.
the
Why is he
head
not muted?
because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat
You
to
mean prominent
democracy.
instructions?
They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake Russia
you.
investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
You got
Does that sound
some
familiar?
nerve.
She went out in Minnesota
You got
and
a
wanted to
lot
let
of man
criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a
What?
radical left liberal
What
that
are
would
you
do
making
this.
up?
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of
That's
it,
not
and
true.
the
They're drilling
prices
more
were
oil than
going
we
up
ever
the
have.
roof.
Okay,
Guys go
Sorry.
to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that
Control the
election,
price of gasoline.
they'll
It's
go back to
OPEC.
destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar,
The
where they
man
need a
says
whole
she gonna
desert to
get
get some
transgender
energy to
operations.
come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President Trump.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay,
Why
thank
don't
you.
you just
We have
turn
an
his
election
mic
in
off?
just 56 days.
Cut his mic.
And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a
Wow.
disgrace.
Should have
But
never, ever
we
been.
didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that.
What are we
She
talking
was the
about,
border
sir?
czar. She doesn't want to be called the
We're
border czar
talking about
because she's
January
embarrassed by
6th.
the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not
Those
just South
people?
America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are
you-
those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in
They're not
Seattle?
going to Black
They were
Lives
Nazi
Matter.
Seattle, they took over a big
They were.
percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to
Now
be
we're going to
prosecuted?
Black Lives Matter.
But let me just ask
You might ask her that
You
question.
were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed
Oh,
up for a
girl.
speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about
Thank you.
former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want
Thank
Vice
you.
President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term
why you
that
keep
related
putting
to
mic
energy
on?
because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these
All of the
people,
Fox News
they
people.
covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper,
That's
but they
not
still
true.
bring
Oh,
it
he
up,
didn't
just
say
like they
that?
bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what
No,
I
I
would
need
do,
you to
and I
stay
would be very
focused.
proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the
Why didn't you
afternoon.
do
You'll
it?
say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill
Presidents
that the
can't sign
border
a
is
deal
closed,
unless
all
it
he has
goes
to
to
do is say it to
Congress.
the Border Patrol, who are
What are you
phenomenal.
talking about?
If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that.
Really?
We said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically.
What?
And these
Because
people
every
are
question
trying
is
to get them to
illegal
vote.
immigrants,
And
right?
that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whiskers. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person.
Really?
Smart.
Viktor Orban.
Prime Minister of Hungary. They
Really?
said, why is the whole
Viktor
world
Orban?
blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
We going with
They were
Viktor
afraid of him. China
fucking
was afraid,
Orban.
and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump.
quoted Viktor
We had
Orban
no problems
again.
when Trump was president. But when this weak,
Another-
pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates
They
her.
threw
He
him out
can't
of
stand
office?
her. But
Mr.
he
President.
got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time
I
is up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. many of them young people who were simply attending a
I don't
concert.
like the start of this.
Women were horribly raped. And so, absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
That's not a
President
good
Trump,
response.
how would you negotiate with
this.
Netanyahu and also
I was afraid of
Hamas in
this.
order to get the hostages out
Yes,
and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it. that's weak on national security by
just really
allowing
wanna know
every
why.
nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people
tell me
into
why.
our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay. Okay. So, gentlemen, thoughts so far? Thoughts so far?
David Muir is not doing a good job, but what's the sister's name? What's her
Lindsay
name?
Davis.
They're not muting him. He's interrupting them. He's running the debate.
He is.
He's like dictating the
But
flow of the debate.
But if they're going to allow him to do that, if
Then
I'm
you go
Kamala,
out.
once he got the green light to do it, I'm off to the races. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. He get the talk extra over the moderator and they turn his mic back on, then I'm gonna do the same thing. And you need to turn my goddamn mic back on. And if you
Right.
don't, I'm gonna call your ass out. I'm gonna say, hey, you allowed him to talk over you. You allowed him to give extra responses. So I need to be afforded this. I'm just going there. That's just gonna be me. I'm just saying. Cam.
I don't know what you want me to say here. If you're expecting a, PhD level dissertation, you about to get teaching people what paragraphs are for the first time. I have no words for the train wreck that is this so-called debate. I don't know whether I'm watching a presidential debate or I'm watching a live comedy show. This is a fucking joke. David Muir, the biggest fucking power bottom in the world. How submissive he is, letting this man continue to talk over him consistently. He tries to push back, and then that inner bottom come out because he piped the fuck on down. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of him.
Power bottom.
Not the
He don't give you submissible, breedable dick pig. He doesn't give you that.
Submissible, breedable dick pig. And there's your quote for tonight. Submissible, breedable dick pig. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's your quote of the night. We got that after the debate is up, we're gonna have to get to her answer about Israel Hamas because we need some real estate to break that down. Because Cam, you on one side of the fence on it. I'm on a whole different side.
I'm on the fence. I'm not on the other side because what I want to know for people that it really wanted her to answer the question in the way they wanted her to answer it, what did she need to do?
I have what I think she needed to do.
Right.
I don't know if we have enough.
Moderate. She's trying to appeal to that Israel lobby, that AIPAC lobby, but she's also still trying to bring in and welcome in those young Democrats, those progressives, those leftists, because she hit all the big points. Yes, Israel has a right to self-defense because if somebody attacked us, with 9/11 being tomorrow, we know good and damn well we would attack them. They have a right to their self-defense, even if the state was created illegally. Move on. She mentioned the ceasefire. Everybody's been talking ceasefire. That's on the left, so she's giving you that there. Ceasefire, but she's also saying, release them hostages. She's giving something back to that AIPAC lobby. Then she goes on to say, two-state solution. The very far right people do not want a two-state solution. The Zionists do not want a two-state solution. So she's
want you to
giving
keep this
the progressive what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want long-term, which is going to have to be a two-state solution.
We don't have enough time in this commercial break to go through all of it, but we will at the end. Hello, Really B. How are you?
Hey to the panel. Hello. Hey, boo. Hey, Cam.
Hey,
Hey, boo.
everybody.
Hey,
that done
Sean.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
I don't have anything intelligent to add to this. I'm just gonna let y'all be the intelligent people tonight. I'm just gonna be the ignorant. This dude is losing it. Like I honestly, the stuff that's coming out of his mouth, I'm like, just let him talk. I'm with Kamala. Just stick to your points and let this dude talk because he is losing it. I'm sorry. I don't have anything intelligent to add. My apologies.
Back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here.
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know.
Oh,
is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up.
ABC.
Just to clarifying the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something.
Really?
She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before.
But
if
I
you
need
don't
Kamala
pay,
to
we're not going to protect
push
you. Otherwise, we
back
would have
and
never
she
gotten
can
it.
talk
He
over
said
me.
it was one of the most
That's what I'm
incredible
saying.
jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president,
She wanted to call himself.
invited them
Oh, she was about to call
to
himself.
Camp David
This
because he
motherfucker.
does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
That
was a very good
true.
agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution
Run the
of
receipts.
5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country.
Then
We
this.
see in each other a
This?
friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive
go.
presidency in the history of our country.
Really?
There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a
That's
person
a lie.
ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a
That's what
person
we're doing?
that has to
This is what
stretch
we're doing.
back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Time is up.
I
Lindsay?
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
Thank you.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
Thank you for going back to your
pursue
policies.
their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police.
Turn his fucking
She
mic
has
off.
a plan to
It sounds like it was off and then
confiscate
they turned it
everybody's
on.
gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump-
no, the
President
former
Trump-
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
gonna
need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always
years.
was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats
What is your
wouldn't
plan?
change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than
You don't even
Obamacare.
have one.
But the Democrats
They don't
gave
have a
up.
plan.
They wouldn't
He
vote
does.
for it.
It's just written in
I had a
crayon.
choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones.
What?
We had some real bad ones
Your
too, and so
plan.
do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare,
You have
then
a-
I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
You don't
I'm
have
not
a plan.
president right now. But if
Oh, girl.
we come up with something, I would
Yes
only
or
change
no?
it if we come up with
You
something
have a
that's better
fucking
and
plan.
less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act,
Well-
understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for
We
the
gotta
first
go to
time
closing
Medicare to
arguments.
negotiate drug prices
Been an
on
hour and a
behalf
half
of you,
almost.
the American people.
Yeah.
Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
past his
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue
Well,
that's important for a
she
lot
made a
of.
mistake. At number one,
Bro,
John McCain fought Obamacare
Cut
for
his,
10 years. But it
cut
wasn't
his
only
mic.
him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't
What
go
are you
after
gonna
people
answer
because
the question?
supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's
the
wife?
answer?
Why did he get, why did she
That's a
pay him
damn
$3.5
question.
million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Hey, man, I'm sorry.
Oh,
You know, all I could think of was the Candy Burst and Real House. The lies, the lies,
bro,
the lies. That's all I could think
like,
about.
I hate to. I'm not gonna constantly beat a dead horse about this Mike situation, but it is what it is. It's an actual thing. However, what I will say is, I don't think I think toward the end there, Kamala started to try to take the opportunities and liberties to say, well, if he gonna do it, I'm gonna do it too. But I think
Yeah.
she should have started that earlier
Earlier.
because
Yeah.
we know, let's be clear, we know they're not going to be fair on it and they're not going to let her do it. But it would be even more apparent if you kept trying to do what he tried to do earlier. I think they probably would be more apt to try and stop him from doing it. It's 165 people here. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like button and also consider pressing the subscribe button. We have a lot of fun here. We do this all the time. We ain't new to this. We true to this. Cams, you have anything? Sean, you have anything to add?
Who was in charge of the mute button? It
I
probably was
don't think
David
that the
Newell.
moderators.
Probably
I
was
don't think
David.
the moderators are. I don't think that they
Yeah,
are.
that's all I want to know. But in a sense, on the other side, it gave him more time to ramble and talk all that foolishness and all them lies. Just to ramble on, to allow him to ramble. That I looked at it as a positive for Kamala Harris
I
and
agree,
for the country.
Sean. That's what I was saying earlier. I just feel like the longer
Yeah.
he rambled, like just let him talk. Because they asked him about climate change, and somehow we ended up with the mayor of Moscow. I don't know how we got
Right.
there.
I don't
I don't
know
I
how
can't,
we got there.
like right. So like let him talk. Every time they ask him about A, he talks about Z. I don't know. Let him ramble. Just let him
Yeah.
ramble. I can't wait to see the Saturday Night Live spoof on this because I want to know if it's gonna be funnier than the actual debate.
Because this is a joke. I want to be clear. This
It really is, and it's sad. It's sad to see. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm serious. But I'm joking, but I'm serious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can only imagine how badly Tim Walz is going to eat JD Vance up, and that's kind of just what I want
Yeah.
to see at this point.
And ain't gonna put nothing on them but a little salt, no pepper. That's the
Um,
Minnesota way.
Not the
okay.
Minnesota way.
I say we do a drinking game for the closing arguments. My word for your drinking game is millions. That's my word. He's
No,
gonna
he
talk
doesn't say millions anymore. He says billions. He doesn't say
Billions.
millions anymore.
of the
Yeah.
immigrants. He's going to
He
say
says
millions
billions.
and millions of immigrants. My word is millions because he's going to mention. You can either do it on millions or immigrants or both.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Every time he says millions, I just think of The Rock, the millions and the millions of The Rock. Going back to that every time he said millions. Every time he mentions immigration, I'm thinking about wrestling, and that's why it's just funny to me. It's just
What I
it's
need-
like a racist trope. It's right there in people's faces, and they'll still deny it.
I need Morning Joe tomorrow to bring on the survivor of the Central Park. The survivor of the Central Park attack, because he killed that lady tonight, and she is alive.
She
She is alive. Like
I
he
mean,
said,
there was
she
so-
died.
There were so many blatant lies. Like, there's no way to even keep up.
Right.
No way to keep up.
Just crazy.
Where's Candy Burr? We just need an endless roll of the Candy Burrs.
Yes.
The lies. Just endless. Like every time he tells a lie, just put it out.
No.
We don't even need to hear the words. Okay. We're back. We don't even need to hear the words. All we need is
The
just
meme.
the meme.
Yes.
Vice President
All
Harris,
right, here we
begin
go.
with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it?
And
She's
why
been there
didn't
for
you?
3.5 years.
She's not the
They've had
president.
3.5
You had
years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to
You had
create
4.
jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She
Why
should
didn't
leave
you?
right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation.
Why didn't you?
We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for
Hey,
watching
Muir.
here in the U.S. and the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
All right, so that was
Trash.
the debate.
Are we gonna get into it? Are we gonna break it down?
Let's break
Are we
it
gonna
down.
react live?
Let's break it down. The line of the night was 81 million people fired you. That was the line of the night.
She ate, left no crumbs.
That was the line of the night. 81 million people fired you. That was the line of the night. Overall, I think she did well. Of course, nobody's perfect. There's no perfect candidate. There's no perfect performance. Because this was a performance. Let's be clear. This was a performance. He did horrible.
Not to cuss him out the whole damn time.
TJ said we need Larry. Do we need Larry? I don't think we need. It's over, TJ. I don't think we need Larry. You say Q Larry? Oh, God. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I know y'all are spiking out. Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary, gender-conforming members of our audience, here is our boy, Larry Myers, to help us get through our sugar spike moment.
Oh, You see, this is the part that I like.
Major Sugar Spike.
So loved the world, I want to fight. That he gave his only begotten son.
Major Sugar Spike.
And shall ever believe.
Major Sugar Spike.
They shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
Taste the biscuit.
Jesus! I wish somebody help me.
Jesus! Listen, the I Want to Fight girl is always my favorite because she comes in right on time. I want to fight.
But
you do want to fight.
Some of the Sugar Spikes, they do be fighting total crash outs.
Listen, so I want to go to a couple. I think there were two to me. I'm not going to say she bombed them, but I think that she didn't do as well as I thought she could. And I thought on one case with that, Donald Trump probably did as best as he probably did during the whole debate. When they talked about Ukraine, and she said, I went over there a couple of days, before the war started, and I spoke to them, and he came right back and said, yeah, and they still went to war. That was a strong response. I have to give him that. That was a strong, yeah. And that was something that I said before we started that I thought would be a sore spot for her, like foreign policy. I wanted to see what she was going to say about it. And I think that there were moments with foreign policy where she it wasn't as strong as I'd like it to be. And she's going to have to work that out. Any thoughts on that?
He clapped back really fast on that. He meaning Donald Trump. So he said 3 days after you met. Well, first he lied and said that she met with Putin and Zelensky, but she only met with Zelensky. And then he comes back and says 3 days after you left, they went to war. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, he clapped back on that. I was like, okay, that was strong.
I was like, hey,
I would have loved for her to come right back and say, you want to talk about negotiating? You do remember that we just a couple weeks ago negotiated the release of prisoners from Russia with the Putin administration. So whether or not I go and talk to him or not, we are able to successfully negotiate with Russia and get what we want. So I would have. That's the way I probably, if I were her, I would have clapped back, because the Biden administration did say that she was very instrumental in that negotiation. So I would have clapped back with that. The other part is the part that Cams says, well, what would you have said? With the Israel-Hamas situation, I don't think she should have led by saying, let's start at the beginning, October 7th. That's not the beginning.
Yeah.
That's not the beginning. That's why I say I didn't like how she started that response, because when you start that response that way, you immediately alienate and turn off those people who are, who may be on the other side. And even though she did, like you say, Cam, she did bring up all of the talking points, but when she started off that way, she kind of already had muddied the water. I may have said that later. I may have started off by saying, let's be clear. We need a ceasefire. That is what we need right now. Full stop. We need one. Because there needs to be an end to the killing of innocent people. And then follow that up by saying, that is how we're going to properly get release of hostages, which we want to happen, and then maybe say, because what happened to Israel on October 7th should not have happened. We do need a two-state solution. So I think that she could have still said everything that she said today. I just think that the way she put it together, it made it seem like it's going to be more of the same. And let's be clear, if it's more of the same and you're still arming Israel, Netanyahu wants no parts of a ceasefire at all. He's already told you that. None at all. So it doesn't look or appear as if you're having a different stance than what we already have. Those to me were those two areas, the foreign policy and the Israel Hamas. Those were the two glaring weak points, I think, for me. Donald Trump, the whole debate was a weak point for him.
I think Vice President Harris's weakest point was Israel. That whole not foreign policy in general, but Israel in particular. I feel like that is a really big weak point because it is so talked about amongst the younger voting bloc. Which, if they show up, as they tend to do in presidential years, are going to really lift her to victory. So I think it's important that, like you said, it could have started off differently. But I felt like she gave the most diplomatic answer that she could on a very touchy and polarizing issue. So I think that was the worst handled of the questions, but her worst was better than Donald Trump's absolute best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But then the bar is set in hell for his sweet potato skinned ass. But I thought she handled it well. She maintained poise throughout, I would say 90% of the debate. But sometimes when the black woman came out, like when she said, "Then this," with the look up
she wanted to say, "You motherfucker."
He was about to get
She was about to say that.
She was about to say, "You motherfucker." Motherfucker what? And you want to question if I'm black? Oh, you about to get all of the blackness today.
Because it's just like, I don't know, it's something I could just feel it. Like it felt just like she was so disgusted with him. And I feel like that really reflected how I was feeling about like how he was just speaking. I'm just like, he couldn't even clean it up. He couldn't pretend for an hour and a half. If you really wanted to be the president, you would have at least pretended to not be this train wreck that we know you are. Dress it up a little bit. He just gave crazy man yelling at the clouds the whole debate.
Sean, what you got?
Let's go back to the beginning of the debate. I think a lot of people slept on the handshake when she went over into his space. He went behind the podium and she went behind the podium as well. So that shows she's not intimidated by him. She came out the gate. I was like, okay, that's a power move.
Mm-hmm.
That's a power move.
That was.
That was a power move. That set the tone, and he was fucking pissed. He was mad as hell.
Absolutely.
So all in all, you were talking about the debate, my take on it. Is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Anything you want to bring up? Any point?
Let's see. Talked about the handshake. I said, all in all, I agree with you on the Israel thing. Hell, she's married to a Jewish man.
She's married to a whole Jewish man.
She's married to a Jewish man. What was a good debate. It was kind of. I wish the moderators would have been a lot on point, because I don't think they were on point.
Well, you know how I feel about David. I expressed it earlier in this broadcast.
Oh yeah,
it needs no repeating.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
I'm
surprised he loosen the suit a little bit. The collar was right there. I'm telling you, because that is a weak man. Like, just, I don't know. They let him run rampant during this whole debate, like, because it seems like they would cut the mic off, then he's still talking, so he's cut it back on. Keep it off.
Right.
Let him rant with no audience, and then just keep it moving.
Yeah. It was like the way that, like I said, during that commercial break, they definitely, she should have, once she saw that the wheels were off the bus on that mic situation, well, if this is what we're doing, then let's do it. We're already here now. Let's go ahead and do it. What I would have loved for her to do in debate prep is be ready to respond by fact checking, because you knew what he was going. You basically knew the script for what he was going, the lies that he was going to tell, because like she said, it's the repeated lie. So she was ready on some of them, but some of the other ones she wasn't. She didn't have, some of the receipts. So I would love to have her have been prepared to fact check and say, because we know he wasn't going to be prepared to do any fact checking. Like, I just don't know if there was any debate prep done on. Well, he basically said he wasn't. He was basically doing more campaign rallies, so he really wasn't doing any debate prep.
I say bring back the old debate format with the town hall and all of that. You don't get the vibe of the energy bouncing off the candidates and candidates vibe on them, so you get that immediate reaction. But that's just me. I prefer the town hall format.
It gave sanitized though, like the new format. It felt stilted. I feel like the debate really only picked up when they were like looking at each other and like addressing points. That's the most lively the debate felt, other than me like getting frustrated at the moderators, to me, not enforcing the rules of the debate. If both parties agreed that these were the rules, let's enforce the rules, because it just, there's going to be perceptions of bias. Oh, they muted my candidate, they muted my candidate more. And I just want that to be taken away from it, so that all that people can really complain about is the substance of the debate between the two candidates.
I mean, at this point, what's the point of muting?
Yeah. He's just going to talk over you.
I mean, what's the whole point of muting? I think I think she did better in explaining some of her economic policies. She's gotten better doing that. Um, and even explaining the fracking. I like the fact that she talked about, hey, my record, even as vice president, making a vote in the Senate to pass the legislation that allows for fracking. Now, let's be clear, I'm a leftist on that. I want no fracking, because I don't think we need more fracking at all. But that's me. But if you want to sell the people that you are for fracking, then I do think that you need to highlight that as well. And say what you want. She did it during one of the answers at the end of the debate, where she said, I want to go back and answer his question. I mean, and respond to it. Because he wasn't answering no questions at all. Let's be clear. He was talking about whatever he wanted to talk about. Damn a question. And she made it a point to say, let me respond to it, but then answer your question as well. And I think the more she does that, the more I don't know, Cams. I'm waiting for a hall monitor to take care of the trolls. That's a whole different situation. I thought one of the hall monitors. I don't know.
I'm surprised they didn't bring up the shooting in Georgia. I'm very surprised they didn't bring that up. That question wasn't proposed.
Because I thought that would have been a segue, because they talked about gun rights. They did. And I'm surprised that wasn't brought up at all. Maybe they thought it was too soon. I don't know. Like, it could have, maybe that was a journalistic decision that they made. Maybe they thought it was too soon in the aftermath of that, but I don't know.
What about the sorority party? She went to a sorority party. They're gonna have the SC Rose and the Zetas, Zeta Phi Beta. Upset.
She was at a sorority party, according to him. Really?
It was some interesting statements tonight. Definitely think it's going to be one talked about on a lot of the spoof shows. Because, I mean, at certain parts of the debate, I was wondering, is this really reality?
Like when he said that she was going to take migrant immigrants in jail and give them trans surgeries. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I said, wait, what? He literally said out of his mouth that she's going to give trans surgeries to migrant immigrants in jail. I said, what? Huh? Like, that's a this can't be life question. That's really one of those. This really can't be life question.
No, the Twilight Zone is the whole abortion, delivering a baby, a full-term baby, and let them on the table,
Like
and then
the mom delivers the
you
baby, and then at
unalive the
that point they
baby. Are you
decide,
in the
oh, well, I
Twilight
guess
Zone?
we can have an abortion now.
So you have an abortion after birth when you on a live baby? I don't think he understands.
How any of this works?
That's a Republican talking point. You know that's that whole. He says
I,
that all the time,
I
and people just
really
look at him
wish,
like, "What? This
I
is an
really wish
femicide."
he would just leave the abortion thing alone. He's so bad on it. He never answers any of the questions. He just goes on a separate tangent, and I feel like he just so off that people are just like sitting there mesmerized by it, and they forget that they actually asked a question about his stance on it. Because they were like, "Oh, let's go back to that." And then like he just kept talking over them, and then they just stopped trying to go back to the initial question, and they just kind of let him go.
I don't think he picked up any new segments of the voting block. I don't know that he lost any of his base either, because those people, he can go up there and say anything and it just doesn't matter. Like it's going to be believable to them. Um, I think I liked when she said Tim Walz and I both own a gun. That'll go some ways
Yeah,
with
I'm gun owners. Yeah, I like that.
the gun,
That was good.
people. So I think that I don't know that she will get a huge bump in any polls or anything, but I don't think that she did any. I think she helped herself, but I don't know that it was like a huge help, because I think that I don't know that if I'm a person that was legitimately, and I really don't legitimately think there are scores and scores and scores of people that are undecided. I think a lot of people truly know what they want to do. They're just looking for a reason to be told to do something else, or a reason to, they're looking for somebody to mess up enough for them to not go with that person. But I think they truly know what they want to do. But I definitely don't think she hurt herself. I think she helped herself tonight more than she could possibly have hurt herself tonight. That's what I think. If we're giving grades like in school, A through F, what are you giving each candidate?
Let me think about that.
Well, I'll tell you, you're the educator, so I mean, I'm sure
You want me to go first?
I'm sure you're going to critique.
Well, we already know who get the F.
Look.
We already know who get the F.
Trump got him.
No,
mad.
I'm going to give him a disrespectful grade. To me, the
What
most disrespectful grade
Incomplete?
is a D
Incomplete?
minus.
A D
A
minus?
D or a D minus.
You weren't even good enough to fail.
You want to know why? Because a F mean that just
Oh.
wasn't shit. But a D minus mean I actually did this, and it's still a failing grade, and I
Okay, you
put
looking from an
effort and
educator's
energy
standpoint. Okay.
into this shit,
Yeah.
and I still get a failing grade. Yeah, get this good D. I give Kamala a B minus. I give him a D minus. I give her a B minus. Because I do feel like the foreign policy I think could have been stronger. I think the definitely the Israel Hamas situation could have been stronger. And then I wanted her to take the liberties if he's going to talk over the mic, and then let me go ahead and do it. So that's where I'm at.
I think Harris is a B plus for me, simply due to the fact that she didn't make the mistakes that Hillary and Joseph Robinette made, where he got under their skin so bad they start tussling. Just tussling. Now he's pulling you into it. I thought she did a very good job of staying above the fray. She addressed him directly to correct some misconceptions or outright lies in his case. And then she moved on to make her point. So she stayed on point, which is, I think, the most important thing. She was able to better articulate her economic policies, because a lot of people had questions about those. Yeah, Trump is, I would say, a D minus. Like, to me, it means that you weren't good enough to fail. You sucked at failing. You failed at failing too, but you failed at being successful. I don't know, like, what I was expecting from him, but he managed to disappoint my already low expectations of him going into the debate.
Okay.
Now that I know the education view of the grading system from you, like between a D minus and an F, I will give Trump a D minus. I don't even want to expend any energy on that. Vice President Harris a B plus. I agree with you, Cams, on that. She held her own. She was, like you said, she was able to stay on message. Had it been in that town hall format with no constraints, no time, with the mic, turning the mics off and all that, she would have not, I believe she would have been able to stay on message because she wouldn't have been distracted by the crowd and all that. So I think that favors her. This debate format favors her in order to get her message across. And this is her first time speaking, not her first time speaking to people, but just to millions and millions of people. So I guess we can drink off that, because I said millions.
Right, that's how drinking. I'm going downstairs in just a few when we get off here. I'll say like this: if you're going to have a town hall style or even a crowd, y'all got to get some real moderators in here, some real people that's going to do their goddamn job. And when we're done, we're done. Hey, that's it. We are moving on.
So, what grade would you give our illustrious moderators?
Oh, the moderators?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I might give them a D plus.
I thought the same thing.
You still fail, but at least you tried to fact check a couple times. They had a couple fact checks in there, but you're getting this good D plus.
Yeah, a D plus as well. Yeah,
you're getting this good D plus, but because you every now and again, every other time, you tried to moderate. You tried to fact check, but yeah.
Then I think Sean meant it as well, not Sean, but they meant it as this election cycle. She really has not had that chance yet. Because how long has she been in the race?
About 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, a month and change.
Yeah.
So
July 21st.
This is her big media opportunity to speak to a lot of people at once. Because I think a lot of people are going to be tuned into this.
I meant I meant this election cycle, not totality, like the beginning. So I'm not diminishing any facts.
But I thought, I don't know that we'll have another debate. I think he won't do. I don't see him doing another
it
debate.
Wouldn't benefit them to do another one.
Like there's nothing new.
Do you think that
debate,
the Trump camp was able to successfully minimize the damage that he could do if he went too far off the record?
I think he did. I'm not going to say he did the best he could do. No, I don't believe that. I don't think he did the worst he could do. For example, when they first asked him that question about him calling her, him saying that she wasn't black, he started off okay. He started off by saying, "I don't care what how she identifies," but he
That's how
couldn't
he should have
say.
ended it. He should have
And
ended
he
it
should
right
have
there.
ended it right there, but he couldn't help himself, and he kept talking. And the more he kept talking, the more he kept fucking up. Yeah,
I mean,
and so
were
I
you
think
cheering a
that,
little bit on the inside though? Because you were just like, yes.
and I could tell there were two things that his team said you need to continue to push on. That was the immigration, that's the border, and economy, because those were two things that he continued to reiterate. So
And I one missed opportunity that would have really, propelled the vice president to, A territory with me, maybe A plus. Specifically mentioning the fact that it was a permanent tax cut for the rich and an increase because it was a temporary rate for most Americans. The reason why you feel the economy is doing worse is because taxes did go up under the bill that Trump signed into law. Like those Trump tax cuts that he keeps advocating for when he speaks about the economy. This is why you're paying more in taxes. This is why your paychecks are smaller. If she would have hit with that, I think that it would have driven a lot of people to really look it up independently on their own, because a lot of people don't pay attention to. They're like, oh, Trump cut taxes. Yes, for a certain demographic. You 4 years, because he knew if I don't win, I can blame it on the next person.
right, because you kept saying, "Oh, they've had 3.5 years, sir. She was not president at all, at all." I do think there were times too, and one of the other reasons that I gave Kamala a B minus, there were a couple times where David and Lindsay asked her a question and said, "How would you differ from Biden?" And she never talked about how she would differ from Biden. There were a couple questions there where they asked her specifically, because I do think she does need to make a designation. Now she did at one point during the debate said, I'm not Joe Biden. You're not running against Joe Biden. You're running against me." She did say that. Really, she was very strong in that. But there were a couple questions where they specifically said how I forgot, it was a couple questions, and they ended it by saying, "How would you differ from President Biden?" And she never really addressed how she would be different from him. So did Taylor Swift conveniently plan this right after the debate? You just waited till they turned off the debate and said, "Okay, I'll just endorse her now." I mean, we'll take it. The Swifties are here for it.
I'm not gonna take it. I don't like that physical manifestation of Skeletor.
Y'all love the mayonnaise mama. Y'all love that mayonnaise mama.
Swifties.
Child.
I don't like that lady.
Oh no, the eating, no, not with the Haitian. I love my Haitian Americans because we have a lot of them in Florida, and I think there's only like 1.3 million of the country. But I know the talk about the animals, eating the animals in Springfield, Ohio, where my mom was born.
That was the weirdest moment for me.
Yeah, that was horrible. And to me, when people do that, I try not to make light of it. I try not to laugh at it. I try not to even engage people on that, because I know I'm not Haitian, but I know I have a lot of very close friends that are Haitian. And I know that's something that they have dealt with, and that's a trope and a stereotype they've lived with all their lives since growing up in school. Like I've heard a lot of Black people say that too. People of Haitian descent, and it's very triggering and it's very offensive. And that white people didn't deal with a lot of Haitian people growing up. Most times when Haitian kids, Asian students, went to black schools, and so they ended up hearing a lot of those tropes, and they ended up hearing a lot of those stereotypes and horrible things from black people. And to now see white America latching on to it and further, driving that home, and knowing how that triggers that group of people. I don't. To me, it's not a laughing matter. It's not something that is to be made light. Excuse me, be made light of, because it's exceedingly offensive to an entire segment of people who we love and care about. Because like you said, Sean, you can't grow up in certain parts of the country and
Other
not
country.
have a lot of close friends that are Haitian.
What about when he said about HIV and it connected to being Haitian? He said that. Remember when Trump said that? Do you
Hmm.
remember when he said that? And
Mhm.
remember wet foot, dry foot, when the Cubans come over to Florida, if they are refugees, they set foot on land, they get
Yep.
to stay. But if a
Haitian
Haitian
come,
comes
they
over,
immediately go back.
they immediately deport them back to Haiti.
And here's another missed opportunity. But she was never going to take this opportunity. Remember
Yeah.
what the Biden and Harris administration did to the Haitians, whipping them. Remember there was the whole thing with the Border Patrol whipping
Oh
those
yeah,
Haitian
yeah, on the
migrants.
horses,
I
on
That was
horses.
under,
Yeah,
that was under the Harris
yeah,
Biden
yes,
administration. That was under this administration.
You
yeah.
broke
Now I
the
know
news.
she wasn't going to take the opportunity. She wasn't going to speak on that at all. If it were me, I would have taken the opportunity to say what happened on the border with those Haitian migrants was deplorable, should never happen in this country. But then she would have been seen as being weak on the border, and she doesn't want to be seen as being weak on the border.
I thought, but you know what? She could have turned that it was deplorable. It should have never happened. And that's why under my administration, we're going to be reforming immigration by hiring more people to be able to, like, whatever. She could have really spun it into how she has a better plan than them just spreading that fear, that uncertainty, and that doubt by using a lot of dog whistle language, a lot of racist tropes, because that's all I heard tonight. He was just running on doom and gloom. And I really feel like the last two presidential election cycles have been that. And I really do, as a voter, want to see something different. Okay, all of this is miserable, it's terrible, like, oh, woe is me. And it's so limiting. It's not forward looking about, hey, it might not be ideal, but this is how we improve things. I want to see more of that. Not of, don't vote for him. He's a dictator. He's a threat to democracy. Like, what are you doing? I don't want to base this in comparison to Trump, because I feel like it's always that, well, we got to vote against Trump, and nothing to say why you're voting for the other candidate.
I also think that there was a moment for her to reach out to the progressive base. And that was when they talked about her wanting to have a national health plan, have national health care. When they talked about Obamacare, and her talking about and having that's something that reaches over to the progressive wing, and talking about it's not impossible. All of the other first world, countries have national health plans. They do. It's not difficult.
Well, we subsidize them. That's why.
I mean, and when you're in bed with Big Pharma too, I mean, I'm not going to be in bed with them, but I'll be at the bar with them. And when we get off of here, I'll be at the bar with Big Pharma. All of their
Here we
C-suites.
go. Here we go.
I'm going to be at the bar with them. They got plenty of money, and I want to, utilize that.
So do you.
Are you waiting on me?
I don't know. I thought Cams was going to ask a question and stop mid.
I don't have anything. I do agree with tired of the doom and gloom and looking for optimism and hope, and just it's very Obama-esque
I really
right now, and it's
Except
on
for those
steroids.
votes. I want to be
On
excited
steroids.
about the election.
Yeah.
Like, give me like when she was announced as everybody rallied behind her. I was so excited because I was not looking forward to this damn election. I was just like, it's the geriatric triathlon. Essentially,
Yeah.
who can last through another election cycle? I just I was actually like, if this is the best we can put up, I might need to move to another country. I was seriously considering moving overseas because these two couldn't have been the only choice, is what I'm thinking. They're clearly both in cognitive decline. Like, this is the best we could do? Somebody that can't read a damn teleprompter anymore on either side?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do you mean, oh, wow?
You got work to do.
Well, we have the wonderful vice presidential debate to look forward to. That's going to be interesting. One more thing that I think that was a missed opportunity. I don't even need to talk about that young man because he was a train wreck. But for Kamala, I think she should have cleaned up that whole. Oh, she went to a sorority party. She could have came right out and just gave a real quick, nod to the Divine Nine. I was not at a sorority party. I was at the actual national convention of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority, which I was already committed to, and I would do it again. And I was glad to speak with those group of women that are some of the most philanthropic and charitable people in this country. But you, sir, go to conventions for white nationalists. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
She also could have said the only organizations that you've been a part of are criminal enterprises.
That too. That too.
Yeah.
Because they got to put some respect on that. I really wish she would have came from that angle, though. Sorority party. And really just went into history, the accomplishment, and what they're still doing today.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not even a member of the Divine Nine, but it will be ignorant of me to say that I'm unaware of all of the good things they do for the betterment of society as a whole. Very philanthropic things are happening. Some announced, some unspoken.
Even speaking to, there are members of these organizations in Congress right now doing the work to pass legislations that do so much for people all across this country: white, black, brown, yellow, red and yellow, black and white.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was a missed opportunity.
It was.
But I think
but I thought the breaks were very conveniently timed, because every time they went on that break, it was exactly what I needed, because I was becoming mentally exhausted.
It was a long time before that first one. Like, they went about an hour.
Yeah, they did. Because I was like,
they went about a full good hour before we got to that first break. That we talked about Taylor Swift endorsing Donald Trump. I mean, it can't do anything but help. I mean,
she endorsed Harris, not Donald Trump.
I mean, Kamala Harris. Dear God, I said
the only one that's endorsing Donald Trump is that boyfriend of hers.
It's Hulk Hogan and what's his name?
Good old Kelsey brother we don't like.
Jason Kelsey is endorsing Donald Trump.
Who?
You know that mustache?
I don't know.
That mustache gives my.
I don't check that. Well, Travis Kelsey decided to go back.
Kelsey endorsed. Oh, Kelsey Grammer did. Kelsey Grammer is a Trump supporter.
Interesting.
Frasier.
And you know what? I enjoyed Frasier, Sean, and now I can no longer watch it. So well written, witty humor. Now I can't support it because I'm not giving you no more coins. Yeah. Just like he did his wife when he divorced her.
Yeah.
Melania endorsed Trump. I don't care. I don't care. If we want to
That's
talk about illegal immigrants or immigrants who need to be deported, can we start with Melania? Can we start there? If we want to deport immigrants, can she be number one in the list of millions that you're going to deport, sir?
right.
I just don't like how hypocritical the Republican position is on that, because the same
Yeah.
immigration that they're trying to get rid of is how her family got here. Like, so
Yeah.
Oh, don't forget JD Vance's wife as well.
Yeah, she's Asian and she Indian.
and it's just like how are y'all a part of a party that actively hates you? It's like a gay black Republican. I just don't think those intersections can exist simultaneously. It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm sure there are a couple.
Sean, you hit me with the you know some.
Oh, I don't know none. I don't know.
That's why I started today.
I do.
I mean,
I do.
but I'm sure they're there.
But what about we got Byron Donalds, Tim Scott. Who else?
There's a gay black Republican. There's that.
The Lieutenant Governor of North
Oh,
Carolina,
Senator Gums. You right. Because everybody know. Everybody knows.
Mouth from Fat Albert. He's
Senator Gums.
He's a gay black Republican.
Oh, I wasn't saying Byron Scott. Byron Donald was. I was talking
I'm
about
talking about Senator Tim.
crazy black.
Mushmouth.
Mushmouth.
That's
Yeah.
Mushmouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm just saying.
You know what? I know that Tim Scott is lying when I see his gums. And I always see them.
And we always see his gums.
Don't they have a surgery for that? Is there surgery for that? I think they have a surgery
There
for that.
is.
I don't know.
With that great Senator Healthcare.
Surgery they take it out and they take out and then suture it back up and to pull it up like that. Yeah.
That's interesting. And that woman married him too. That white woman married him. I mean, I'm just saying.
Perhaps it's a lavender marriage.
Like, first of all, just aesthetically, looking at Tim Scott, who marries that? I'm just gonna say, who marries that? And then on top of that, you know full well that young man is constantly at the Republican Party, at the Republican sex parties that they have weekly, with all of the porn skanks at them, where Lady G is doing her lines of coke off of the porn skanks peen. I'm just saying.
So at these Republican sex parties, if you had to name a sex worker who would be there,
well, we know who be there. Mr. Boulder be there. Fat Rabbit Killer be there. It be all of the DMV porn skanks.
In any hole.
If you got the money, you know Fat Rabbit Killer. I should not mention the fact that he has the same alliances as me and Sean Kinsey, but we gonna leave that alone.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious.
No.
I promise you. Look at it. Look at his arm. He has a tat.
Oh, I don't. He be punishing them.
Listen, he has a tattoo. He got a fat tat right on his arm. If you look, sure does. It's right there. There's pictures of him with the cane. They got pictures of him from undergrad.
Okay.
Okay. Before he had the dreads. Anyway, but you know who be all of the DMV porn skanks? They be at them sex parties.
What's the short dark skin ball? What's his name? I bet he's there. He does a lot of that.
Jim Moraine?
Who?
Short, dark skin, bald.
Short, started bald headed.
I know we're eating bald headed. I don't know if he's short or not.
Bald head.
I can't think of his name, but I know he does a lot of interracial stuff.
Mm. You know that's what the LA.
Not the older guy with the beard.
No, he doesn't have a beard. He's like clean shaven.
Mm.
I can't think of his name.
It sounds
Not-
right.
See.
Now my brain is gone.
Yeah.
Child. Who's what? You didn't know Lady G was a real person? I have a whole video on my channel. You can go look it up about Lady G. Her and her ladybugs. She likes the men to count her ladybugs on her taint. That's what she calls her moles. Ladybugs. Who count my ladybugs?
I can't.
Fucking
I'm
mess.
done.
Just a goddamn. Listen, I just report on this shit. I don't make this shit up. I just report on this shit. Yeah, we saw that that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris the moment the debate was over. What were you waiting for? And don't expect Kamala to play none of your little stank songs. Kamala ain't playing none of your little garbage songs. She playing Freedom by Beyonce. Now, I don't like Beyonce like that. However, we ain't playing no. We gonna play Beyonce before we play Taylor Swift. I promise you that. We just not gonna
never
be
miss
playing
an opportunity to make it.
mayonnaise mama music.
Beyonce don't be having. See, you see how she get brought into it?
So Jeff says he approves this message.
Yeah.
I mean, people like lots of terrible things, Beth. I mean, you know?
Yeah. A lot of people like Donald Trump. I mean, what are we talking about?
Not enough people like him from to win the popular vote, though.
Well, then there's that.
Yeah.
And then there's that. Shout out to everybody that was here tonight. Listen, y'all came through. Did y'all hit the like button? Did y'all subscribe to the channel? Did you join the membership? Because we have a great members only chat where we did put that meat picture from that man from the palate cleansers in the members only chat. It was real big. Did you see it, Cam?
Was it big or was it a great angle?
No, it wasn't. No, that wasn't no angle. That was big.
So you're just playing into the "you're a size queen" trope right now?
No, I just put the picture in there. The people asked me
to dig the hole because you like your hole to be dug in as well.
Look at Ravine. She in the chat. Ravine, did you not ask me to put it in the members only chat? Did I not put it in the members only chat? I didn't say I was going to be with all of that. I just put it in the members only chat. What do you want from me? I'm doing what the people want. Got to give the people. Got to give them what they want. It was, Harold. It was untouched, unmutilated.
Oh, so you have a preference. Interesting. I learned something new about El Teddy every day. Just got to keep living, I guess.
You live, you learn. To call Trump a motherfucker. I wish she would have called him a motherfucker too. I think she would have gained a whole lot of votes if she would have came out and said that motherfucker. She would have came up as, you know what? I can appreciate that. And I really think she speaks to me because I need my president to cuss. Mm-hmm. That's just like Josh Shapiro be out here cussing all of the damn time.
When she said this, and when she looked him up and down, and she would have hit him with a motherfucker, and this motherfucker, like, whoa.
This motherfucker.
That would have did something to me as a voter. She speaks my language.
Right.
If you cussing people out when they try you, You resonate with me. Those are my core
Resonate
values.
with a large segment of the American populace.
Because I feel like most of us, though, we show up to any place wishing a motherfucker would. And when they do, we have a smile on our face when we check them. If she would have done that, I'm telling you, I would have had to give her a little bit more money, to just get some more ads that are just really memeing the shit out of the entire right. I will pay for that because that speaks to me on a core level. You gotta cuss these folks out. I'm sorry.
Listen, she was here for it. Well, listen, y'all, we've been on here 3+ hours. We about to get out of here. Sean, tell the people how to find you and what you got going on.
I can be found at Instagram, Sean W. Kinsey, all one word, at Sean W. Kinsey and Sean Kinsey on Facebook. What I got going on, about to start a new position within the company next week.
Come on,
That's about
raises.
it. Say what now?
Come on,
Say,
Ray.
come on, raises, drinks on you.
Yeah, raise a nice little raise. Yeah, so it's gonna be good. Yeah,
You're
so
gonna be making
I'm
that
blessed.
Cam some money in a moment.
Yeah,
Cam,
that's it.
tell the people where to find you and what you got going on.
My info is scrolling at the bottom. That is my IG as well as my OnlyFans. Please subscribe.
Oh, there's an only.
I'm joking.
Where's my phone?
I am
OnlyFans.
joking.
But you know somebody that already,
Your mama got an OnlyFans, so I don't know. Everybody,
somebody that already looked it up to
I
see
thought
what's
about
going to use the OnlyFans.
Huh?
look,
Oh yeah.
these student loan payments are a little high. If I have to showcase a little meat, a little cake,
Come
so
on,
be
man.
it. I'm just trying to survive. But no, things I have going on. Still trying to transition into management. It's a difficult path for me. I'm used to being a highly paid individual contributor. Pray for me. Thank you.
Listen, we've had a lot of people visit us today. Make sure y'all are subscribing. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you come back through. We have a great time here. Programming note, tomorrow is a travel day for me. I'm going back. And so, because I'm in Philadelphia right now, so we'll be live on Thursday, not tomorrow, but we will be live Thursday. And we will have Silly Saturday this weekend. So look forward to that. Yeah, that's all we got for y'all. We about to get out of here. As I always say, I love y'all. I love on y'all. Thank you all for being vocal, present, and active. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for any and all contributions that you make to the channel. They are much obliged and much appreciated. Ways to contribute to the platform are scrolling below. Sean, if you could put your Cash App in the chat, just in case somebody might want to bless you. If you could put that in there. Y'all know we be having some great watch parties. So y'all know we're going to be around here we will be here for the vice presidential election. We will certainly be here on election night. Travel again. I'm already out of town. You see I'm in this hotel room, Ravine. But I would not be here. But I'm in this hotel room in Philly. I was hanging out with Medusa earlier today. So yes.
I'm gonna be drunk election night.
Dear God. I probably will.
Oh yeah.
Because ain't nothing gonna happen election night. Sean, did you put it in the chat? Did you put your Cash App in the chat?
I did. Yeah, I did. I just did.
Oh, I must have missed it. Wait, no, I don't see it.
Election night is gonna. I have to get me some Sir Davis for election night.
I gotta go get me some.
I gotta get some. They sold out, so I have to wait till they get motion. So.
Sure. Anyway, y'all, we about to get out of here. Until next time, thank y'all for coming. Y'all drive safely. We out of here. Bye, y'all.